Everyone knew her face, but very few people truly understood the story behind it. For a brief moment in time, she wasn't just another actress trying to survive in Hollywood. She was everywhere. Her image appeared on screens across the country. Her performances were talked about by critics, and audiences couldn't forget the strange, unique presence she brought to every role she played. There was something about her that felt different. She didn't fit into the traditional image of beauty that Hollywood had been selling for decades. She wasn't polished in the same way. She didn't try to be perfect, and maybe that was exactly why people couldn't look away from her. But just as quickly as she appeared, she disappeared. No announcement, no farewell, no explanation. One day she was part of the conversation, and the next, it was as if she had never existed at all. For years, people continued to ask the same question quietly at first, and then with growing curiosity. What really happened to her? Her journey into Hollywood didn't begin with privilege or connections. She came from a normal background, far removed from the bright lights and expectations of the film industry. Like many others, she arrived with nothing more than a possibility, a chance encounter that would eventually lead her to be noticed by someone who mattered. And that moment changed everything. She was discovered in a way that almost feels unreal. A director saw something in her that others had overlooked. Not perfection, not glamour, but authenticity, a kind of raw presence that could be taught or recreated. It was simply there as she began working in film. It became clear that she wasn't trying to imitate anyone else. Her performances felt unpredictable, almost uncomfortable at times, but deeply real, and in an industry built on illusion, that kind of honesty stood out immediately. Her career started slowly, with roles that didn't attract much attention at first. But with each performance, more people began to notice. Directors started to trust her with more complex characters, and audiences began to recognize her face. Then came the role that would define her forever. A film that would later become one of the most iconic in cinematic history. A film that people still talk about decades later. On screen, her performance was unforgettable. The fear, the emotion, the tension, it all felt real in a way that few performances ever achieve. Viewers believed every second of it, but what they didn't see was what it took to create those moments. Behind the scenes, the experience was far more intense than anyone realized. The director, known for his perfectionism, pushed every detail to its limit. Scenes were repeated again and again, sometimes dozens of times, until they matched the exact vision he had in mind. For her, this meant living in a constant state of emotional exhaustion. The fear she showed on screen wasn't just acting anymore, it was something deeper. Something that came from being pushed beyond what most people could endure. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months. The pressure didn't stop. The intensity didn't fade, and slowly something inside her began to change. By the time the film was released, it was celebrated as a masterpiece. Critics praised it. Audiences were captivated. It became part of film history, and she became part of that history too. But while the world was celebrating, she was already paying the price for what it had taken to get there. At that point, everything should have continued upward. More roles, more success, more recognition. That's how Hollywood is supposed to work. But that's not what happened. Instead, something unexpected began to unfold. Her presence in films became less frequent. The roles that once came easily started to disappear. The same industry that had once embraced her began to move on without explanation. There were rumors, of course. There always are. Some people said she was too different. Others said she was difficult to work with. But none of those explanations ever felt complete. And then slowly she faded from the spotlight entirely. By now you probably recognize her. Her name was Shelley Duvall. What happened after that is still difficult to fully understand. Years passed, and her absence became part of the mystery itself. People who remembered her performances wondered where she had gone, but there were few answers. When she eventually appeared again, it was the return people had imagined. The woman they saw was not the same person they remembered. Her voice, her expressions, the way she spoke, everything felt different. For many, it was a moment that was hard to watch. Not because of what was said, but because of what it seemed to reveal. It raised questions that still don't have clear answers. Was it the pressure of fame? Was it the experience of that film? Or was it something else entirely? something no one ever truly saw. The truth is, we may never know. And maybe that's what makes stories like this so powerful. Because behind every famous face, there's a human story that doesn't always fit into a simple narrative. Fame can give everything recognition, opportunity, admiration. But it can also take things away quietly over time, without anyone noticing until it's too late. If you've made it this far, then you already understand that this is just a story about a celebrity. It's a story about what happens when the spotlight fades, and what's left behind when the world stops looking. And sometimes, the most unforgettable stories are the ones that don't have a clear ending.